And welcome back to another Kidlit chat. I'm your host, Brooke Van Sickle, as always. And I have the wonderful Michaela Whatnall with me here today. Hey, Michaela, how are you?
Hello, doing well, thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this. I'm so excited. So, for those who are watching who've never met you before and aren't familiar with you, who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So I'm a literary agent with Dystel, Goderich, and Bourret. We're an agency based in New York, but I'm actually in our West Coast office working out of LA. And I'm newer on the agenting side. I've been agenting for about 2 years and have a really cool roster of clients, both on the children's side and the adult side.
I love it. I love it. I was doing a little bit of research on you, and you have like an interesting background, which I was like, we're going to chat about that. Normally, you don't have that from a lot of agents. So your background for people who are watching is in schools and library marketing, but what made you want to become an agent?
Well, to be honest, for my very first publishing internship, I knew I wanted to be an agent. My very first internship was just reading slush over, so reading like queries for an agent over a summer when I was in college, and I fell in love with it. It was just there's just a sense of excitement, but I really wanted to get into publishing however I possibly could. So I was taking every internship, every job opportunity. So the first job I kind of fell into was in school and library marketing. So mostly on the children's side of things. And I ended up really loving it. It was a fantastic introduction to the industry, and also meant that I got to be communicating a lot and working with teachers and librarians who are like literally the best people in the world. Yeah. So, and there was so many things that were amazing about that experience, but the whole time I sort of had in the back of my head, like I missed a lot of things about being involved in agenting. And especially I missed getting to be on the front end of the creative process. Like marketing is fantastic for a lot of reasons. You get to like shout about books very enthusiastically, which is one of my favorite things to do. But I missed getting to talk to creators when they were coming up with their ideas, when they were developing their ideas, because mostly I was getting handed books when they were already done and, being told, okay, do something with this. So even as I was working in school and library marketing, I was sort of game planning how to get the right experience to end up eventually at an agency. And I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah, and you're one of like the top agencies, which is awesome.
I got lucky.
Yeah, no, it's all skill, I'm sure. Yeah. So let's back up just a little bit and let's talk about the slush. Because okay, people submit and they're like, no one's gonna read this. And people do. People like you back in the day, they read that.
Yeah. Back then and now, reading queries is one of my favorite things that I do during the course of my job, because it feels like every new email might be my next client, right? Like there's a sense of like, I don't know, treasure hunting or like making connections or finding my new favorite story, like could be the next thing that I click on. So, and I've always liked reading the beginnings of books more than any other part, like that starting something new. And so reading queries, I'm basically doing that over and over and over again. So that really is, where I find the majority of my clients, and somewhere it's almost like a guilty pleasure because I need to be prioritizing, my inbox, my clients, my work. But every so often, if I'm like, I just need a little breather, I'll like hop into my query manager and read a few queries, like as a reward to myself.
I think that's like a creative person trait. It's like we always want to be doing something new and like a new project. So
yeah,
it's like, let's just dive into here.
Right. It's always fresh. Yeah.
Are you one of those writers or readers that will only give a book so long? Like I'll read a book and I'll only give it 50 pages.
In terms of work, I have to be for things that I'm reading that I'm considering. I wish I had the time to read everything to the end, but I don't. So that is usually I'll read, if I'm reading a requested manuscript, I'll only read until I'm very confident that it's not the right fit for me and I can kind of articulate why. Reading for fun though, I am the opposite. I am really, really bad at dropping a book. I don't know why. A lot of people tell me the merits of dropping a book so you can move on to something that you like better, but I'm a bit of a completionist.
A little bit of like a guilt. Like I feel like you have a little bit of that guilt of you start a book and even if you update your Goodreads and you're like, oh, I really need to like commit and finish.
Yeah, well, I think I get a lot of satisfaction from completing things, whether that's like when I'm listening to podcasts, I like to go back and listen to the whole back catalog just because I feel, I don't know, there's something satisfying about being like, I have heard all of this, or I have read all of this author's books. I don't know why.
Right? Just that like check mark. Like yes. I like things I've already done on my to-do list just so I can.
Oh, I'm very much a to-do list person. I've got my little like sticky notes that I get to cross off. Yeah, very much into that.
Oh, we're like the same. So, speaking of like things that attract you, what kind of makes you want to take on a project?
Oh man, it's a big combination of things. You know, I'm looking for strong writing always. I'm looking for characters who I either love or love to hate, or like want to get to know deeper, who are about to take me on a journey. I read across genres, so I'm not picky in terms of subject matter, but I do find that the queries that jump out at me and the projects I've ended up signing, there's just something, the query is able to articulate both like how the project is in conversation with other books in the market in its genre, but also what makes a difference. So what about it is something I haven't seen in a book before, or what about this character have I, you know, never come across before? And so that usually leaps out at me pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's pretty common across like a lot. It's just we're always
Yeah.
looking at this type of fresh. We're like, oh, that's a cool angle. Like,
Yeah.
and it keeps you wanting to go, like keep
Yeah.
reading. Yeah.
Even if it's playing with a lot of things that are familiar, what's that one tweak that is setting you apart?
Yeah, exactly. So are there any cool projects you're working on right now that you're excited about?
Oh man, I mean, yeah, I am always happy to brag about my clients. I can talk about, I actually am at that cool stage where this is my first year of client books being published. So, you know, the publishing process is just so long. So from like signing a client to revising with them to going on submission to the whole journey of the book getting to be published to finally be hitting the point where my clients' books are coming out is like, yeah, I can't, no words for that level of joy. But yeah, I have 2 client books that are coming out this year. One came out in February. It's called Out of Character by Jenna Miller. I mean, it's one that definitely aligns with what we were just talking about, where when the query came in, there were things about the book that were really familiar. It is a queer romance. It is really, it deals a lot with like character, like family relationships with the character. But at the same time, there were things I hadn't really seen before. It's about a fat girl, and it's body positive, and it talks about her experience moving through the world as like a fat lesbian in a way I'd never seen on the page. And at the same time, it's about a girl who escapes the stresses of her real life by role playing online with friends who she's never met in person. And I had never seen a book like that about somebody who role played, who tells stories with people set in, you know, the world of a YA fantasy book that they love in the case of this book. And so that jumped out at me. It's like, oh, I can see like this is familiar in a lot of ways. This fits really nicely into contemporary YA, but at the same time, it's bringing something really new. So that's one that I love, and it's out now if anybody is interested in reading it. And then the other one, what was that? Out of Character by Jenna Miller. I would hold up the book, but I found that when I blur my background, it blurs the book as well. Not useful.
No, that's pretty good. Remember that, guys, though. We'll find it.
Out of Character. And then the other client book I have coming out this year comes out next month, and it's called Threads That Bind. And it is by an author named Kika Hatsupulu. And it's one of those books that has a million things going on, so I will give you the very short version, which is basically, it is a fantasy noir inspired by Greek mythology. And Kika herself is Greek, so she's bringing kind of a new angle, I think. But it's a murder mystery. It's a love story that is playing with the soulmate trope. It's a complicated sister story. It's all set in this like gritty city with a really cool magic system. I'm obsessed. So that's kind of 2 really fun books to be starting out with, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm a sucker for a murder mystery. What was that called again?
That's Threads That Bind.
And that comes out in May.
May 30th. Yep.
Awesome. We're going to check that one out too. Well, I like to come up with a fun question. I thought you do film rights, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So everyone's always like, I would love to have my book be a Netflix movie. That's the thing, or like be on streaming or something. So what's a book that you've read that you really wish they would make a movie out of?
Okay, I have an answer to this because I talk about this to people all the time. Besides my client books and my agency's books, which obviously I would like every single one of them to be adapted, please. But something that I have not worked on, but that I love is a book. It was 2 novellas, but then they were combined into a book called American Hippo by Sarah Gailey. And it is essentially a Western, except for the cowboys ride on hippos, and they're pulling off a heist. So I'm like, I need to see that. I need to see these cowboys on their hippos going through the marshes of the South.
And it can be animated for sure.
Like, yeah, animated. Yeah, absolutely.
Real.
I don't know how you would do it, but I want to see it.
I love that. That's awesome. It's very unexpected. That's why I like the question.
Yes, I know it's random. It's a really fun book though, if anyone's interested in it. That sounds up anybody's alley. I enjoy it a lot.
Someone will be listening to this and they'll go and make the movie. That would be ideal.
I would love that.
fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to
Of
hang out and to
course.
chat with us. Where should they go to learn more about you?
Well, my agency website's a great place to start. It's just Dystel.com. And then my Twitter, I try to keep relatively up to date. There's a link to my submission page. I also have I try to keep pretty robust manuscript wish list page where I kind of break down everything that I'm interested in. And I also have an Instagram, which is just my full name that I'm trying to get better about using. So there's a few things posted over there as well.
Trying to actually use all the socials all the time. It's just,
I'm not really a social media person, so I really have to like push myself to post. But I know that it's handy. It's good to be able to communicate what I'm looking for and news for my clients and things like that. But it's definitely not as natural to me as I think it's to some people.
yeah. And we as authors always really appreciate when you keep like your website up to date and the manuscript wish list, because that just helps us too, because no one wants to send it to you if you're not going to enjoy it, you know?
Yeah. No, I try to be as clear as I can and all that.
Yeah. It's just, it's all the things. Being an agent, bless you. We all need you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time.